There's a kind of beauty that makes people uncomfortable, not the beauty you admire and move on from, the kind that stops a room, the kind that makes old women whisper prayers under their breath, not out of joy, but out of fear. Adaeze was that kind of beautiful. She was the only daughter of Chief Obiora of Umunna village. Tall, skin like polished ebony, eyes that held something deeper than what most people could name. She walks through the market and conversation stopped mid-sentence. She laughed and grown men forgot what they were arguing about. But Adaeze had a problem. She had refused every suitor who came. 23 men, young men, rich men, men with cows and land and titles. She sent them all away with the same answer. He is not the one. Her mother had stopped begging, her father had stopped threatening, the village had long started talking, and somewhere, in a place that is not quite this world, something had been watching her for a very long time. The Iriji festival only came once a year, the New Yam Festival, the biggest celebration in Umunna. 3 days of drumming, dancing, masquerades, feasting. Every family dressed in their finest, every young woman hoping to be noticed, every young man hoping to do the noticing. Adaeze almost didn't go, but her mother dragged her out by the wrist and told her that she was tired of raising a daughter for the spirits. She didn't know how quite right she was. The festival was loud and alive, red and yellow costumes, drummers beating like their hearts depended on it, children chasing each other between the legs of adults, the smell of palm wine and roasted corn thick in the air. And then he appeared. No one saw where he came from. One moment, the space near the Iroko tree was empty. The next moment, he was standing there. He was the most beautiful man anyone had ever seen. Tall, lean, skin, a smooth deep brown, almost luminous in the firelight. He wore white, all white, which was strange for a festival. Simple white abada, no embroidery, no cap, just him and that face. He was looking directly at Adaeze. She felt it before she saw him. A pull, like gravity, had shifted and now tilted towards that tree. She turned. Their eyes met, and in that moment, something was sealed, something she didn't have words for yet. He came to see her the next morning, not to her father's compound, not with an uncle, not with kola nut, not with the proper way things were done. He came to the stream where Adaeze fetched water every morning before the rest of the village woke up. He was already there when she arrived, sitting on a smooth rock at the edge of the water, like he had been waiting. She should have turned back, any sensible woman would have, but she didn't. His name, he said, was Eze. He was from a village beyond the eastern hills. He had come to trade. He planned to stay a while. He didn't say much, but every word he did say landed somewhere quiet and important inside her. He asked questions no man had ever asked her, what she dreamed about, what she feared, what she thought happened to the sun when it set. She talked for an hour without meaning to. She walked home with her pot of water and a strange warmth in her chest that had no name. He came back the next morning, and the morning after that. By the 7th morning, Adaeze was not going to the stream for water. She was going there for him. He came to her father's compound on the 50th day, not with uncles, not with relatives. He came alone, dressed in white again, and this time carrying a pot of palm wine and a kola nut wrapped in fresh leaves. The village elders muttered, a man who brings himself cannot be a man with people. A man without people is a man without roots, and a man without roots? But Chief Obiora looked into the stranger's eyes and felt something he couldn't explain. A weight, a stillness, like looking into deep water and not being able to see the bottom. He collected the palm wine. Adaeze watched from behind the doorway of the inner house. Her hand pressed to her chest. The discussions went on for 3 days. The bride price was agreed, though some of the items Eze brought were strange. Unusual cowries, a gourd of water that didn't slosh when you moved it, a white cock that made no sound, but he paid everything, every last item. And on the last night before the traditional marriage, Adaeze's grandmother, 91 years old, half blind, nearly deaf, pulled Adaeze close and whispered in her ear, "That man has no shadow." Adaeze looked back at Eze, standing in the moonlit compound. She looked at the ground beside his feet. She told herself it was just the angle of the moon. The wedding was the most beautiful thing Umunna had ever seen and the most unsettling. Beautiful because Adaeze was radiant. She wore deep red and gold, a hand-woven George wrapper, coral beads stacked high around her neck, her hair pressed and wrapped in an elaborate gold gele. She was a bride in the truest sense of the word, the kind that makes mothers cry and young girls dream. Unsettling because of the small things. The white cock that was to be slaughtered for the ceremony. It ran to the edge of the compound and screamed, not crowed, screamed, and would not come back. The oldest masquerade in the village, the Ago, the one that had danced at every wedding for 40 years, refused to enter the compound. He turned at the gate, shook violently, and left without explanation. The diviner who was called to bless the union arrived, looked at Adaeze, and quietly packed his bag and walked away without a word. But the wine was sweet, the music was loud, and Adaeze was laughing, so the village celebrated. That night, the new couple entered the bridal hut together. The door closed. And somewhere deep in the forest, beyond the eastern hills, something exhaled like it had been holding its breath for a very long time. The first month of the marriage was everything Adaeze had ever wanted. Eze was tender, quiet. He anticipated her moods before she named them. He cooked when she was tired. He braided her hair in the evenings without being asked. He laughed at her jokes, really laughed, like her words reached something in him. She was happy, genuinely, completely happy. But small things kept happening. On the third week, she woke up in the night and found his side of the mat empty. She looked outside. He was standing at the edge of their compound, completely still, staring into the dark. She called his name. He turned slowly. He smiled. He came back to bed. He didn't explain. She didn't ask. On the fifth week, her friend Ngozi came to visit and refused to enter the house. She stood at the gate, laughing nervously, saying the compound smelled strange, like cold river water. She said, like the inside of a forest at midnight. Adaeze laughed it off. On the seventh week, she found the child standing at the door of her compound. A small boy, no older than 6, staring up at the house with wide eyes. He pointed at the door and said, "The man inside is not a man." Before Adaeze could respond, the boy turned and ran. She stood there for a long time. Adaeze went to her grandmother. She brought yam and palm oil and sat at the old woman's feet the way she used to as a child. She didn't know how to begin, so she began in the middle. She described the nights he disappeared, the stillness, the boy at the gate, the way Ngozi refused to enter the house, the way animals went quiet when Eze walked through the market. Her grandmother listened without speaking. When Adaeze finished, the old woman was quiet for a very long time, long enough that Adaeze thought she had fallen asleep. Then she spoke. "When you were born," she said, "a spirit came to this compound. Your father chased it away with fire. He thought it was gone. Spirits do not forget. They do not forget and they do not stop. They only wait." Adaeze felt the air leave her chest. "He has been waiting for you since before you were born," her grandmother said. "Every man you refused, he turned them away. From inside your heart, he has been living in your heart, child. And now you have given him a body to live in." Adaeze stood up. Her legs were shaking, but her face was torn. She walked home. She walked through the door. Eze was sitting in the middle of the room, waiting. He looked up at her. He smiled, and for the first time, she felt afraid of that smile. She waited until evening. She set his food. She sat across from him. She watched him eat, slowly, carefully, the way he always did. He never ate much. She had always told herself it was just his nature. Then she asked him, not gently, not carefully. She looked him in the eyes across the firelight and said, "Who are you? And I want the truth." The room went very still. He put down his cup. He looked at her for a long time, longer than any human pause would allow. And then, slowly, something shifted in his face, not into something monstrous, into something older, something vast, like a mask not coming off, but becoming transparent. "You already know," he said. She didn't look away. "Say it." He breathed in slowly. "I have loved you." he said. Since before your mother's mother was born, I watched you life after life. I waited. I was patient. And when you were finally born as yourself, fully, completely yourself, I could not wait anymore. A tear ran down Adaeze's face, not because she was sad, because she believed him, and that was the most terrifying thing of all. She believed every word, and she still loved him. What happens to me? She asked. His expression, for the first time, cracked. Something like grief moved across his face. That, he said quietly, depends on what you choose. He told her everything. He was Adaeze, a spirit of the deep waters, one of the ancient ones who existed before the first human village was built. He was not evil. He was not a demon, but he was not human. And the line between the worlds was not meant to be crossed. He had crossed it for her. But there was a cost. For every year she remained his wife, 1 year would be taken from her life at the end. Not violently, not painfully. She would simply age faster than she should. She would leave this world sooner than she was meant to. And if she stayed with him long enough, eventually she would cross over into his world entirely. Not die, cross over and live with him there, forever in the place between. If she left him, walked away, returned to her father's compound, broke the union, he would go. He had sworn on his first water, the oldest oath, that he would not force her. But the love would remain in her chest always, a permanent unasked for ache. She had until sunrise. She sat alone in the compound, her back against the clay wall, looking up at the stars. The stars looked back. She thought of her mother, her father, children she had not yet had, a life she had imagined, a future that was ordinary and real and fully human. She thought of him, the morning conversations by the stream, the way he braided her hair, the fact that across all time, across every life she had ever lived, he had chosen her over and over without her even knowing. The sky began to lighten. She stood up. She walked to the door. She pushed it open. She walked in. Adaeze was standing in the center of the room, waiting. He had not slept. He would not have slept. She stood before him, and she said, I am not leaving you. He closed his eyes, and for the first time since she had known him, he looked like he might break. Adaeze, don't, she said. You asked me to choose, and I'm choosing. I know what it cost. I'm not a child. She reached up and took his face in both hands. But you have to promise me something, she said. No more hiding. No more closed doors. Whatever you are, I face it with you. Every part of it. He covered her hands with his. The room filled with a light that had no source. No binding. Not blinding. Just present. Warm. Old. Outside, the first birds began to sing. But that was not the end, because words had gotten to the village. The grandmother had not kept silent. The things she told the elders about Adaeze's shadow, about the old spirit that had visited the compound the night Adaeze was born, spread like fire in dry grass. By the time the sun was fully up, 3 of the most powerful diviners in the region were at the compound gate, and behind them, Chief Obiora, her father, with fire. The gate shook. Chief Obiara's voice was thunder. Adaeze, come out of that compound. Come out now. Inside, Adaeze and Adaeze stood together, listening. She felt his hands tighten around hers. She squeezed back. Don't do anything, she said. Let me go out. They will take you away. No, she said, but we're not. She walked to the gate alone and opened it. The sight of her father's face, the fire in his hand, the grief and the rage fighting each other behind his eyes nearly broke her. The head diviner stepped forward. He was old, ancient, with a carved staff and eyes like burnt coal. He looked at her, then he looked past her at the compound. He whispered something under his breath in the old language. Then he turned to Chief Obiora and said, The spirit has not harmed her. Yet, said Chief Obiora. Not yet, the diviner agreed. He turned back to Adaeze. Daughter, do you know what you are bound to? Yes, she said. And you choose it? She didn't hesitate. Yes. The diviner was quiet. He looked at her for a long time. Something shifted in his ancient face, not approval, but recognition. A recognition of someone watching a story he had heard before play out again. He turned to Chief Obiora. "She cannot be compelled," he said. "The bond is already sealed. If we break it by force, it will not free her. It will destroy her." The torch in Chief Obiora's hand trembled. He looked at his daughter. She looked back at him, not defiantly, lovingly, with a grief that said, "I know this hurts, I'm sorry, but I cannot be someone else for you." Chief Obiora lowered the torch and wept. They said Adaeze aged strangely, not badly, never badly, but her neighbors would look at her some mornings and swear she looked 10 years older than she had the season before, and then see her in the evening and think they had imagined it. Her hair turned silver early. By the time she was 35, it was completely white, and somehow, on her, it was breathtaking. She and Eze lived quietly at the edge of the village. They had no children. Spirit cannot give life the way men do, but she never looked like a woman with an emptiness in her. If anything, she looked full. She became a healer. It was Eze who taught her the deep knowledge of roots and water and the names of things. Women came to her from 3 villages away with problems that no ordinary healer could touch. She cured fevers that had lasted months. She found lost children. She spoke truth to women who needed to hear it. The village stopped fearing her. They started revering her. And Eze, he began to be seen. Not often, but enough. He was always at her side in the market, always at the doorway when a visitor came, always present. The children of the village who had once feared him began to sit at his feet. He told them stories of the old world, the world before. He was a good man, they said. Whatever he was a good man. She was 51 years old when she called her father to her bedside. He was old now too. They sat together for the first time without guards up, without argument between them, just a father and the daughter he had never fully understood, but had never stopped loving. She held his hand and told him she was not afraid. He believed her. That was what broke him. She had outlived her mother by a decade. She had healed more people than she could count. She had loved and have been loved. Strangely, incompletely by the world's measure, but truly. She said, "I chose this. I will choose it again." He pressed his lips to her forehead. He left. Eze came in and sat beside her. The room was quiet. Outside, the village was going about its ordinary life. Children running, women calling. The distant sound of drumming from somewhere near the river. She turned her head and looked at him. "Is it beautiful, dear?" she asked. He smiled. That smile, that warm, vast, too still smile. "Yes," he said. "Then I'm ready," she said. She closed her eyes. The oil lamp in the corner burned for a moment with an intense steady gold. Then the flame rose. Then it was still. Outside, the oldest woman in the village looked up from her walk at the sky. A single white bird she had never seen before flew low over the village. Not in any direction a bird usually flies, but upwards, simply upward, until it was gone. They said in Umunna that the compound at the edge of the village stayed warm for 40 years. After they both were gone, women who passed by at night said they heard low laughter coming from inside. A woman's laugh, high and unguarded. The laugh of someone completely happy. Children dared each other to peek through the window. None of them ever did. But the oldest ones, when they were grandmothers and grandfathers themselves, told the story to their own grandchildren exactly as it had been told to them. That once in Umunna, a woman was loved so deeply and so long by a spirit that when the world was no longer big enough for both of them, it opened. And she stepped through, not lost, not taken. She went willingly, and that is the difference. That is everything. Some loves are too big for this world. Adaeze didn't lose. She didn't get swept away by something dark. She made a choice, eyes wide open, and she lived fully inside it. That is not tragedy, that is courage. And maybe that's what true love has always been. Not the safe kind, not the easy kind, but the kind that asks everything of you and somehow you say yes anyway. If the story moved something in you, if you felt it, then you already know why these old African stories were never just stories. They were warnings, they were mirrors, They were the truth our grandmothers knew and wrapped in moonlight so we could bear to hear them. Don't leave without doing these 3 things. If you are new here, subscribe. More stories like this are coming and you don't want to miss them. Drop a comment below. Would you have made the same choice as Adaeze? Yes or no? I want to know. And share this with someone who needs a story tonight. You know exactly who that person is. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.